A very good morning, good evening, good afternoon to you, wherever you might be in the world. As always, my name obviously is Anna. Lorena's Labyrinth is my baby. If you're new to the channel, I want to say welcome to you. Thank you for joining me. If you're a returning visitor, of course, thank you very much. I always appreciate the returning visitors for sure. Just a reminder, though, to people that the returning visitors won't need it actually, and that is that I do go down a tangent, so I put the timing chapters in the description for you. If you're new to the channel, there might be times that you want to jump forward from one screen to the other. I want to thank everybody. Did I thank you? I can't remember. I'm a little bit scattered today. I'm hopeful that Toby's going to behave himself today and let me get through this. I'll try and make today's video as short as possible, but we know I can go down a tangent, so we'll stick with that. Before I do get into that, though, just fair warning, I'm just looking at my notes here, that I'm actually recording this video early again to load so that it can be published on Sunday. So it's all just part of me trying to stay on top of my time management. Oh yeah, I know what I was going to say, which is if you find any of the content useful on my videos, could you please consider just giving me a thumbs up? Leaving a comment is even better because I actually really look forward to engagement with people. And also, even if it's a negative or critical thing, like I had a classic the other day, I'm going to talk to you about it shortly. But I love the fact that people will make even a negative comment because it lets me know that I've got an area that I can focus on, shall we say. It's all part of growth and development. So I consider all feedback positive, whether it appears to be negative or not. Anyway, moving on. So, well, I hope the world has been treating you very kindly over the last week since last Sunday and that everything's positive for you. I forgot to mention one of the reasons, of course, that I've been busy is I've had family over from the eastern states, which was actually a pure joy. Now, in between times, I have been doing my head in, okay? I have decided to upgrade my web upgrade. Well, that would be like upgrade, except that it's got a letter T in it and it means nothing. I'm being a bit sarcastic. Okay, so no, I've been working on my website and trying to upgrade it because I realise that there's a lot of stuff. It's been neglected. It doesn't reflect who I am anymore. You know, we're always doing this ongoing change and development and growth as we go through our lives. So suffice to say, if you were to go and visit the website now, you're going to see it looks an absolute mess. And I've put a sign up at the top. Hopefully it shows saying that it's under development and due for a relaunch. Now, one of the primary motivators for me doing this was actually because of the crystals, trying to get the crystal information up there. And believe you me, it's stretching the grey matter, shall we say, because I've had to go back to looking at how do you actually do this formatting. Even if it's drag and drop, there's limitations on every website, whether it's Wix, whether it's WordPress, whether it's Hostinger, you know, whatever. We have to be able to adapt to it. So it's been stretching me and challenging me because it's been a while since I've looked at it, but it is starting to come together. So either way, where I'm going with this is I'm trying to work on that in between doing the video content here to keep the YouTube channel going. But I'm really hopeful that what I'm going to do is create something that will be of value to many people. So anyway, yep, that's what's happening. So for Perth locals and Western Australians that are visiting Perth, or actually anybody that might be visiting Perth, just a reminder that on the second Wednesday of every month, I do this local community gathering. So what I'm trying to do is make some changes with it. In the first instance, I should actually let you know that I haven't actually created the next event so that you can book in, but that will be on the agenda today or tomorrow. But where I'm going with this is I've actually now committed to doing them every second Wednesday of the month up until the end of the year. But what I'm also doing, because remember, this is new for me, I'm getting back into it, is I'm revisiting this whole concept of how I'm going to deliver them, because I am getting some help at the moment with Kerry and Karina. I've got to acknowledge them when it comes to setting up the rooms. And the problem is that I take so much with me that I'm actually exhausted the next day and in pain because it's actually quite heavy to lift the boxes, even though I bought a trolley and all of that kind of stuff. So we're going to catch up hopefully this weekend and really look at cutting back some of these boxes of materials and product that I take along. Basically just to smooth, what do you call it, smooth stream it, smooth line it, I can't remember the terminology, but anyway, just to improve processes and cut back. So I'll probably only be doing what is called featured crystals. I won't be taking the whole collection. If people want to buy product, of course they can come and visit me. My cards are out there. I've got contact details. When the website is relaunched, you'll be able to contact me through the contact form on the website anyway, if there was something you were particularly interested in, or if you want to come over to my house and book a time to go into my crystal room, which is just lovely at the moment, and just have a look at the product and even enjoy sitting in that space because it's lovely. It's got a lot of ambient energy in there at the moment. So anyway, that's what's going on. I will put the event back up. I'll start promoting it again over the next days so that you can book in. So the beauty of relationships and having people in our environment is actually that they reflect things to us. We all hear about this law of reflection. Sometimes it's going to be they reflect to us our values. Sometimes it's actually looking in the mirror and, that twinkle, twinkle, little star, what you say is what you are. Sometimes it's those kind of reflections, but other times it's just reminders of healthy wisdom and healthy choices and all of this kind of thing. So this week I was reminded about why gossip, hearsay, and assumption are just an absolute waste of space. Okay, we do not do ourselves any favour as human beings if we participate in these kind of activities. So I'm going to let you know a scenario. I'm going to get personal here and talk about my situation and what came up. And even I won't give the whole outcome because I actually have got to the bottom of it now. I had to really think about where did this come from and how did it happen. So bottom line is, as in all families, I suspect, I don't think there would be any families or many that don't have a level of dysfunction. And this is whether it's an immediate member of the family or somebody that is an extended member of the family that perhaps is married in or dating one of the family members, where they tend to thrive on drama. Anyway, where I'm going with this is a question was put to me about my brother, right? Now, I am being transparent about this because you actually don't know his name, so his privacy is protected. But either way, I was asked if it was true that my brother had a secret love child, and my immediate thought was, in whose world would we actually think this was true? Okay, because straight away, immediately, these are reflexive responses for me, like love child. Really, honestly, we haven't used those terms since about the 1940s or 1960s. If a child was born out of wedlock, we didn't call it a love child. It's certainly my brother and my age group. And if somebody did get pregnant, there was no shame about it. You know what I mean? It was not actually a big deal. It was not something that we would keep secret because we've kind of moved on as a society, within the last 50 odd years. And my brother is not 70 is where I'm going, not 80 either. But anyway, as it happens. So for me, my initial response was to ask, I think perhaps a bit of critical thinking is in order here. One, where did you hear it, right? You don't have to answer these questions, I said to the person, but ask yourself, who told you this story? What contact, where would they have got their information from? Because I don't believe that any of these people have had anything to do with my brother in the last 30 years, if they even know him. So ask them yourself, what would be their source? How might they have come across this information? Why would it have any credibility? What is this person's motivation for telling the story? Let's get to the bottom of this. And what could be the potential outcome for this person by repeating this kind of gossip and hearsay? And Anyway, look, obviously the person that was repeating the gossip to me, or asking the question, kind of went a little bit silent on that. Now, I thought to myself, look, I'm not in a position to actually answer questions like that. So my response ultimately was, do some critical thinking. And if you think there might be validity to this story that you've just heard and you really feel that you want to know, then don't ask me. Call my brother and ask him, right? Now, the thing is, I knew that the person was not going to call my brother, but for me, it was like, I don't like gossip, right? I really don't like gossip, and I don't like stories that are going to paint a person in an unattractive light. It might be malicious, you know what I mean? What? Because I'm now asking the question, once I started thinking about it, what was that person's agenda? Why would they repeat this? Because the way the story was conveyed to me, it potentially sounded like my brother had some child that he was ashamed of. He'd not followed up with his paternal responsibilities and all of that kind of stuff, which is, if that were the case, that would be completely out of character. And also, not only that, my brother and I are close enough that if he had a child, I would expect that he would have told me. Anyway, so where I'm going with this is I phoned my brother up and I said, why would I have heard this story? Do you have any idea? Well, of course, he laughed and he basically turned around and said, look, if I had a child, I'd be so proud. I would be so happy. The whole world would have known about it if I had a child back in about year 2000. And I thought, yeah, that was my thoughts as well. I mean, he's got children now. He loves children. He would have been a good dad of any child, whether he was married or not. Anyway, where I'm going with this is, it definitely is a good practice to do that. Hear no evil, see no evil, say no evil. My motivation for going to my brother was actually to try and work out where the source might be from. I actually have worked it out now for your information. What I believe is that it was a misguided asking a question in regard to a story that they probably heard, but it was not related to my brother. It was actually related to my uncle, and it wasn't that big a secret. It was actually a case of he did have a child back in the 60s, but they were unable to marry because it was a religious clash. One was Catholic, one was Protestant or whatever, and the families banned them from marrying. And I understand, because he told me, but my uncle told me before he passed, and he would be nearly 100 if he was alive today, that he did have a relationship with his son, but they didn't reconnect until his son was an adult. So I think this is where the story came from, and it's just been confused, and probably a good reminder why people shouldn't tell other people's stories, actually. Now, speaking about storytelling, this also has come back as a reminder for me this week, because it's kind of in relation to the scenario I just told you about with the gossip and the hearsay. But, not all storytelling is behind a person's back. Sometimes we're telling other people's stories in front of them, which is probably not such a bad thing, because at least there's an opportunity to correct a person. But either way, I am reminded about this story today because I'm doing the video transcript on Azurite Sunstone. And of course, that leads me down Aboriginal culture. And I've obviously worked and lived around many Aboriginal folk. And I've heard some wonderful wisdom come from Aboriginal people as well. So anyway, I'll just share some of these tips with you because they're actually quite priceless. One of them that I heard regularly, I've heard it from many Aboriginals, is that we white fellas, we talk too much. And our problem is that we need to close our mouths and open our ears and communicate more so with our ears and our eyes, which basically the inference of that is that when we do open our mouth, it carries more weight because we've actually been reflecting, we've been listening intently and closely, and we've been listening not only to the words that come out of people's mouths, but we've been monitoring their body language. We're observing any what is referred to as incongruence between actions and the mouth. Okay, so this is more known now as body language, but this is embedded, I guess, into the culture of Aboriginal folk. So anyway, it just means, right, that they are attentive. But when it comes to the Azurite Sunstone memory recall, if you like, I remember an Aboriginal person saying, if it's not your story, you don't tell it. Bottom line, simple as. Do not tell a story if it doesn't belong to you. And it's not always because the stories are secret. The people are, some stories obviously are going to be very private, especially if it's cultural stuff. But when it's a person's personal story, you cannot tell my story. That's the attitude, because it is my story to tell. And if somebody else tells that story, then that story can become distorted and deviate from the narrative. So we talked about what has happened within the family where there's this distortion of a story and total mix-up. There is other ways this can happen. So I'm going to draw upon an example that happened with me more recently. And I'm saying this, I'm giving you fair warning. It sounds pretty horrible, but it is told with humour. When we speak for other people, we paint a picture with our words and with our actions that may be completely misleading, that may change the entire narrative of that person's story simply with the words that we apply to it. And it doesn't necessarily paint that person's character in a pretty light. So going back to perhaps the example of the Aboriginal lady that I guess was the first person to talk to me about telling people's stories, we can tell a person's story and it might include extreme adversity or victimization, and it might, as we tell that person's story, paint them as a victim or a perpetual victim throughout their life that is somehow, asking for problems, or somehow there's something inherently wrong with that person's character that they keep getting into these situations. However, when that person is allowed to tell their own story, what we might hear is somebody that is not a victim, but rather they are a survivor. It might reflect victory and strength, triumph over adversity, and all these positive character attributes of being able to endure adversity as well, and where we actually hold admiration and respect for that person who's telling their story. So it's really important, I guess, not just for Aboriginal people, but for all of us to be able to tell our own stories. Now, the one that I was going to say that actually reflects quite badly, well, it doesn't. It has potential to, but it made me choke, right? I was out somewhere more recently, and I was with a group of people, and one person, they're all new to my social circle anyway, you may as well say, but one person has had more contact with me than the other members. And anyway, the person that has had more contact with me cracked a joke. It was said as a joke, but it was said to one of the other people there in the presence, of another person at least, saying, Anna's like me. She hates people as much as I do. Well, I almost choked. Okay, that's the point. I almost choked. I understood actually what she was saying and what she was inferring, despite the fact it was humour. But the way it was said was just a total mischaracterization of who and what I am. So where I'm going with this is I had mentioned to her that I'm more comfortable being on my own and having a small social circle, shall we say, being in my own space and being a bit reclusive, and that I prefer to be in small groups as opposed to large groups because I can become overwhelmed in large groups. And as an example of this, I personally absolutely detest going shopping because I find that people get in your space, right? And, that's the elbows. We all know what it's like to go down a crowded shop, like peak hour traffic. Anyway, I absolutely hate it. And I think to put this into context for people to understand my aversion to these crowded situations is I spent much of my life in remote areas, outside of city areas. I didn't grow up in urban environments. So I spent a lot of time in open spaces. And therefore, to be in a crowded environment is just totally against I think all of my comfort zones. I won't even go to a beach in the city because I'm used to going to the beaches where if you want to speak to somebody, you actually have to stand up, do the cooey, and give them a wave to let them know, hey, I need to speak to you. And then you start walking towards each other. And that's because we've had the privilege of these wide open spaces. Now, if this is something that we've had all of our life, it doesn't mean that we hate people. It means that we are more comfortable in our own personal space, or to have, I suppose, I can't even think of the word. We've got a large circle around us. We have to have space, I guess, is the only way to explain it. So I hope the couple of scenarios that I've painted for people today explain why it's probably in the best interests of all of us to actually refrain from gossip, to refrain from imparting hearsay or telling other people's stories. It's probably fine, I think, to see what's going on around you. I think that's important. That's the observation. I don't know that I would want to be the three wise monkeys that covers his eyes and pretends that they can't see anything wrong. That, of course, is a judgment, but see things that we can change, I guess. We have to be able to see the truth for what it is, and the truth is not always pretty. That's just my perspective. But to recognise that when we're talking a truth, we're talking our version of the truth, and somebody else may have a different one. And that's probably another reason why we should avoid doing storytelling. Now, on with the channel update. So as far as crystal magic updates go, what I've purchased and what I haven't, there hasn't been a lot change. I have actually had some beautiful little Buddhas. I bought them just to see what they look like, and they are a mix of pyrite and hematite. Healer's gold. I can't remember the black and the gold they are. I got some gorgeous, stunning carved yellow aventurine little elephants. I wanted to see what they look like as well. And I've had some garnet spheres arrive, some beautiful garnet. And also I've had some more crystal generators arrive. And of course, I've got my pinkaragonite has arrived. Yay. I'll talk about that in a moment. So where I was talking about, I see all feedback to be positive. Well, first of all, I have to acknowledge the fact that last week I said I would put up Smoky Citrine and then Smoky Quartz, but I actually did it roundabout. So Smoky Quartz went up last week. Smoky Citrine has gone up this week. And this is where that negative feedback comes in. The poor person, I feel very sorry for them. At least, even though it was a complaint, they put underneath it that, the volume was dreadful. And they were quite right. I should have checked it. But I didn't do it. Now, just to put things in perspective, the program that I use to create my videos, they've added an extra feature, and I've had a few problems with it. And it auto-balanced, it did some kind of automatic adjustment to the sound, which made the background volume was absolutely massive and deafening apparently. And I would not have known because I didn't check that until the person made the comment. So I will actually delete that now. I've reloaded it with the volume adjusted. But yeah, look, suffice to say, if you see something wrong, even including with my audio, let me know because I can fix it, but I won't know if people don't tell me. And even on a good day, there's going to be a problem for me to find the audio balance. People may not be aware that I actually have industrial deafness because many years ago I used to work around machinery, and obviously it took its toll. So sometimes it impacts on my capacity to get that balance of the audio correct. And in the past, I don't have the person now doing it, but in the past I used to have somebody check it for me because clearly I couldn't rely on my own capacity to hear and get it correct. But anyway, yeah, look, if you see something wrong with the audio or anything else, let me know. If there's some kind of technological glitch, more than happy to fix it up. So when it comes to the pinkaragonite, yes, I got my obelisk in this week, and I can say it was actually a very interesting experience as far as understanding pinkaragonite and handling it as well, because mine aren't polished and sealed. I have put some photos on the actual videos because because I had time to do it before I loaded it. So yeah, I encourage you, if you think you might be into pinkaragonite, go and have a look at that video. You'll definitely get some tips there on how to handle it and how to care for it. I must say though that I'm actually experimenting with my obelisks at the moment. I've got some away in a glass display cabinet, and I've actually got some on a bookshelf because I actually want to see how they cope with the environment, shall we say. And I'll be sure to update you if I notice anything worthy of a mention. I'll let you know in one of the next yarning videos. So when it comes to the pink aragonite, yes, I got my obelisk in this week, and I can say it was actually a very interesting experience as far as understanding pink aragonite and handling it as well, because now Azurite Sunstone is scheduled for next week. I'm stumbling over my words. I'm in two minds as to whether or not to load this one on the Tuesday or the Thursday. It will probably go up on the Tuesday because I am working on the transcript currently, and I'm hoping that it's not going to be too long a video, because actually I've already done a video on Azurite, but the Sunstone has, I guess, more extensive attributes than what attribute alone does, and that's potentially because, of course, it's on a host rock. It's on kaolinite. So anyway, yeah, that one will be up next week, Tuesday or Thursday. And if I can speak, blueapatite is the next one scheduled for next week, but it's not actually scheduled right now because I actually am still working on it. It's under construction. It's actually a beautiful crystal. I love that. I've got some here as well. So more than happy to share that information. You can expect it to go up. As I said, it will either be Tuesday or Thursday. I'm not sure which one I'll put up first yet. It just depends on how I feel on the day, I guess. Anyway, moving on. Not going to spend too much time on this particular slide because obviously the returning visitors know all about it. They'll know there's a heap of playlists. If you're new to the channel though, you might not be aware that when I talk about the colour and the numerology playlist, that is the association and links between colour, because colour's got vibration. Numbers also have vibration, and with the numerology playlist, that basically is an online workshop where you can access all the information for free. The only thing that I don't include on it is actually how to work out what your past life karma is. The rest of it is easily accessible and easy to calculate, I consider. Does take some practice though. And of course, we've got the Crystal Magic playlist, Universal Law, Spiritual Law. I think while some of it I find to be relatable, a lot of it is about stimulating our own desire to reflect, understand and process information, just as part of our own self-expansion. And of course there is the self-help channels playlists as well. So my friends, there you go. That is this week's yarning video done and completed. If you've got any comments, if you want to add to it, if there's any questions, or if you stuff that you might want me to work on in the near future, by all means leave a comment. Let me know, because I aim to try and I guess meet your needs, your requirements with whatever task that it is that I've set myself. Yeah, leave a comment. If you like the content, you find it useful, please do give us a like. In the meantime, I am going to say, have a wonderful day, wonderful week, stay blessed, love you, leave you, catch you on the next one. Bye-bye for now.